Alright. Looks like things are going. I'm just going to post the relevant links everywhere and see if those go through. Looks like they're going through. Welcome to some hot takes, I guess. That's kind of the plan. I've got my Edge of the Earth Investigator expansion. I haven't opened it yet. I took off the plastic wrap earlier today. And the reason I'm doing this is mostly because in, I guess, 1 day's time from now, I'm going to have the Investigator Box, or sorry, not the Investigator Box, the Campaign Box for Edge of the Earth, and I'm planning on live streaming those scenarios. As many as I can play in however much time I can do. And I figured today would be a good time to kind of give an example of the quality for myself so that I am not going to be disappointed when it looks like shit because my webcam is like 3,000 years old. But anyways, why don't we just dive right into it? Pop the box open. Looks pretty nice. I took the plastic wrap off, like I said. It's hollow. I was warned about this. So, none of this is surprising to me, right? This is kind of their whole thing. I got 2 copies of this. I don't know if that's normal. 2 copies? Is 2 copies normal? I don't know necessarily, but, I'm not going to say it isn't. That can go away. Bye-bye. So we got our 2 packs of player cards here. We've got our handy-dandy cardboard, which is also just going to get hucked away to the side. Gotten rid of as soon as possible. The insert. Same old shit, right? I know the FAQs in this were actually pretty useful, from what I remember. It kind of gets into some of the Bob Jenkins stuff, answering that question about the basic action for Close the Circle. I've already seen all these cards, so there's nothing in here that's like mind-bending, but I figured I'd just do a little rapid-fire, couple of hot takes. Or cold takes. They'll probably be mostly cold takes at this point because of how long everyone's been aware of the contents of the pack. But, everyone's got their opinions, and I'm here, and I'll share mine. So Daniela, Daniela's pretty interesting. She's got the Mechanics Wrench, which lets her trigger that ability on her. I do think, though, that for me personally, I don't have a great feel of how Daniela works. She's the kind of investigator, her ability is such that I'm going to have to play around with it to get a good feeling for it. The one thing that I will say is that the Mob Goons has always kind of been, see, look, that image quality is just awful. Yeah, hey Dane, what's up, man? The Mob Goons are kind of scary to me, mostly because I remember for Rita, the hoods were always pretty scary to me. And Mob Goons kind of does the same thing. Like, in that it really deals with her ability in a strong way. That being said, the fact that you can just go kill them with a 3 damage attack in Daniela is quite nice. So you don't have to worry so much as you do with hoods. So that's Daniela. We'll call that. What I said is I'm going to have to play around with her to get a feeling for how good she is. Norman Withers. I just finished up that Alice in Wonderland campaign, and if you haven't watched that, you probably should, because it's really good. Norman is phenomenal. Lever Dibon is phenomenal. The Harbinger will be shuffled onto the top of your deck after your mulligan. That's all I really have to say about Norman. He's extremely good. He's probably... I would consider him to be like an S-tier investigator. At least on standard where I play. Hey, Tim. Got your box from Canada a couple days ago. Oh, man. That's awesome. Yeah, my store is really strict about release dates. And so they weren't willing to sell it to me today. But today was Remembrance Day anyways, so I was kind of supposed to be home, celebrating the troops and stuff. So, what can you do? Yeah, I'm really excited for it. I'm hoping that I can stream it. I know that the quality of the webcam is a problem. I'm gonna have to figure something out. I know it's not expensive to buy one that'll be like at least more competent than this, but like if you saw how I'm holding the webcam up right now, you'd probably laugh. It's like a ladder that's hanging over the table I play on, and it's just abysmal. And if I flip this up to look at me, like this is upside down, right? Like that's my play mat. I'm looking this way. The camera's upside down. If this flips up to look at me, I'll be upside down. So it's a total hodgepodge. This is like a no budget live stream, so we'll have to make do with that. Monterey Jack, I think he's kind of in the same boat as Daniela, where I have to play around with him to get a good feel for him. Obviously, his ability is just giving you value. Like it's just a solid ability. It's not a flashy ability, but it's solid. The bullwhip is nice because like having that fast play backup is always good. Evading people with a 5 evade and dealing a little bit of damage, not always necessary. You can just evade them, but being able to deal 2 damage lets you deal with a lot of really annoying enemies really easily. Buried Secrets, I think, is the reason why I need to test around with him, because it reads a little scary to me, but it's probably not that bad. Failing and taking 2 horror to shuffle it into your deck reminds me so much of Ursula, and Call of the Unknown in my current Carcosa campaign is buggering me pretty bad, so it's kind of making me think of that. Not to mention with his 6 base horror, that's also a big concern. 2 out of 6 is a lot, right? Again, I think I'm going to have to play around with him and get a better feel for how that rogue to seeker transition goes over. Oh, the player card box. Oh no. Well, you know what though? I gotta say, the player cards. I mean, the reason I'm doing this is I think the cards in this are all generally pretty good. There's nothing in here that I'm like disappointed that it got printed or anything like that. There's definitely some stuff that's niche that I'll probably have a hard time using, but nothing egregious, which I think is a really good mark for where the game's going. Lily is another one that I kind of feel like I need to play a little bit. Are these on screen? Yeah, they're on screen. Just because the disciplines all are so unique, her abilities, her stat line is kind of middling for a fighter to me, without the plus 1 combat, and like her level 0 deck building is just strange looking to me. I have a very hard time conceptualizing what exactly she's doing at level 0. I've got a couple of decks that I want to try out, but I've kind of been holding off for the campaign to actually play these investigators, except for Norman, just because Norman's amazing and super exciting to me. Monterey feels like he's going to be powerful. Yeah, I think he's going to be powerful too. I just have a feeling that I don't have a good read for that transition. Because so like take Norman, the transition from Seeker to Mystic is like seamless to me. You just go have amazing secret cards, and level 0 secret cards are all like generally pretty good. And he's got that built-in economy thing, and his economy thing is also kind of a draw thing. Monterey Jack kind of does the same thing, right? He has all this movement shenanigans stuff that's money and draws, and he's got 2 really strong stats for the things he wants to be using. I just have a bit of a funky feeling about that power level discrepancy for level 0 cards. Because level 0 Rogue is always scary to me. 1 willpower is always a little scary to me. And 6 base Sanity with 1 willpower is like, alright, what's going on here? At least, like, take Skids. You know, he has, like, some Guardian stuff to kind of help him out with that. He has, like, a bunch of big wild icons and Steadfast and stuff like that to help him out, just in case he needs to pass it. But with 1, you just kind of throw them away, right? So, anyways, that's Jack. Lily, I have... the thing with Lily is I see the high-level builds, I get the high-level builds, and I don't know how you get there from the low-level builds. So I'm going to have to play around with her to get a good feeling for her. I think that starting off, I'm going to be trying her with the willpower discipline, starting with 4 willpower, starting with a bunch of spells, and then picking up the combat second, and then probably the agility next, and then the intellect last. Just because I see the path where she stays at 2 intellect very easily. The sad part about that is that the ability on the intellect is so sweet, and the rest of them are fine. In fact, I find I'm looking at the combat one again, and I see that it's good, it's powerful, it lets you do a thing, and sometimes you just need to do a huge test. But you know, for an extra action to do a huge test, you could just draw a card that has good icons on it, right, to do the test. So, anyways, That's kind of where I'm at with Lily. I see where she goes, but I don't know how to get there, and I'll have to mess around with her to kind of get a better feeling for that. Bob, I think, is just like ridiculously good. I don't really have a whole lot to say about Bob. Daisy gets a bonus action to use tomes. He gets a bonus action to play assets, item assets. And playing assets is good. You need assets. Assets are your long-term tempo and momentum and everything. You invest in it early, and it carries you right to the end. There's not much to say about how strong that is. I do think that his stat line is really good. 2 willpower on a survivor that turns into a rogue is like a little scary, but it's not crazy. Once you're rogue, like you can go with a well connected and just pass and just like absolutely blast those tests. So I think Bob is just really solid, and I'm not concerned about how he's going to shape up. Oh, these are not even on screen. Well, you know what? They don't really need to be on screen. I'm just going to put them in piles anyways. So getting into the rest of the player cards, Geared Up is really good, and I don't really want to expound upon that because a lot of people don't think it is, and I think you just need to try it out. That's all I'm going to say on that. You just need to try it out. Play with like 16, 17, 18 assets in your deck. Try to get as many of them to be items as possible. Jeff posted a Zoe deck the other day when we were talking about Geared Up, or maybe it was Underworld support that we were talking about, but either way, it was Zoe with Geared Up and Underworld support and like 16 or 18 items. You do a couple of sample draws with that, it's nuts. It's nuts. You don't even need to worry about it. And you might get, like, this is the type of card where once in a while you'll get a little screwed out of it, but generally speaking, you're going to just be getting value. And that's a good spot to be, is to just be getting value. Toe-to-toe is bonkers. Super good. Super good. Definitely drops off towards the end of the campaign, but, I mean, if you still need an automatic success 2 damage attack by the end of the campaign, then you've got bigger fish to fry, I guess. It's really good, though. Toss this on your stick to the plan. You won't regret it. Get Behind Me. I think in one and 2 player, I mean, obviously 1 player this is going to be not useful. In 2 player, I could see trying this out in Daniela because it works so well with her ability. But I don't see myself trying this out for a while until I've exhausted some other stuff that I want to try out. Gang Up is really cool. The synergy cards, all the synergy cards, I'm not sure if I'm going to have a whole lot to say about them. They're really interesting. I might talk about them more when I get to the multi-class stuff at the end, but I think Gang Up is neat. It has really high ceiling, and high ceiling stuff is fun, right? Like no one dislikes a high ceiling card, because the higher of a ceiling is, the flashier the effect is. Too many people are going to love that. So I think Gang Up is cool. I think a lot of people are going to be able to use Gang Up pretty effectively. Sweep and Kick is really good, I think. Amazing in Rita, but honestly, with it being a spirit and a tactic, there's a lot of stuff, and a trick, there's a lot of stuff that this can do. Evading an enemy in a pinch can be really nice. And I just think it's going to be good. You're going to take this, it's super cheap. You got a crazy skill value in basically anyone, even like Roland, who's only going to be swinging for 6. I mean, 6 to deal +1 damage and evade someone, like, I don't know. That seems great to me. You just need a couple of other boosts and you're solid. Defensive Stance. I think all of these skills are getting a little underrated in the community, but that's probably a solo bias where once in a while you just need to crush a test, and having a lot of icons for a test can be really good. An evade in a pinch can be really handy. I usually use Daring for that. So I'm sure there's a lot of instances where upgrading like out of a Daring for Defensive Stance doesn't make sense because it's like 1 more icon but not drawing a card, but also not risking alert. But anyways, I think they're fine. I think people are underrating them, but not by much. But they're good. They're good. Oh, hey, thanks, David. I really appreciate that, man. Yeah, kicking Nathaniel's nuts. Sorry, my screen is like way the heck over this way back behind me, so I got to turn around once in a while to read. Sweet York deck that consistently hit. Leave about Geared Up until the official word comes on if you can play things one at a time or not. Yeah, that's a big thing for Geared Up. I'll be pretty sad if you can't like play stuff off a backpack. I'll be mildly irritated if you can't use secrets off of Schaffner's catalog. That one will kind of bother me, I think, because it seems like it's like built for one another, right? I get that it's not, because like Schaffner's is a Bob thing and he can't really get geared up, but at the same time, like that would kind of irk me a little bit. Butterfly Swords level 2 is fine as like a stepping stone. I think it's interesting that the Guardians are getting a stepping stone to that big Butterfly Swords, but I think that the big Butterfly Swords is just a lot more interesting to talk about. This is like a 3 damage attack, kind of, right? If you hit the first one. It can be a 3 damage attack, which is good, right? Like that's fine. Skids, for instance, could probably take Butterfly Swords level 2 and be okay. But he likes to do other stuff with his hands, I think. So take it or leave it. If you're on your way to Butterfly Swords 5, which I think some people can be, it warrants that, I believe. You'd pick that up on the way if you can't just drop 10 XP at once. Dodge level 2 is kind of a funky card. I think it's fine. It's obviously fine. But it's funny to me that it's like a test 1 agility. Because, like, very few Guardians are going to be guaranteed to pass that. And even off-class Guardians, I'm trying to think of who passes this. Like, again, would Skids upgrade a dodge into this? -1 cost? Yeah, that's pretty good. A dodge for 0 is pretty good. The difference between 0 and 1 resources is quite a lot, but I don't see myself taking this very often. I do take dodge occasionally, but honestly, I just take hits. I take hits and I regret it. So I'll probably not take dodge for quite a while, and then eventually try it out and be like, oh wow, that's cool. I tried combat training out in my Tommy playthrough with Norman through Alice in Wonderland, and it's good. It's really good in Tommy. Playing it for 0 and getting like a buck or 2 back when it dies, because it's gonna die. You don't get to keep these out on the board forever unless you're like really ridiculously overly set up. But it's good. They're all good. They're fine. They're good. For 3 XP, 2 static boosts, and the ability to pay money into more, it's good. On the Hunt, great upgrade. I don't want to really say much more than that. If you need an explanation of why this is good, then you're nuts. It's just great. Fang of Tirthira. This is good. It's a big shame it's not a spirit for Nathaniel, but I can kind of understand why it's not, because it's nuts. It's also a bit of a shame it doesn't hit aloof enemies, but, aloof enemies being what they are, you shouldn't need to hit an aloof enemy for 4 damage, or for 5 damage if you're Nathaniel. So, I think this is good. I think that it is a bit of a shame it doesn't engage so that you are not risking hitting someone else, but I think that you probably have ways to avoid that. If you're spending a big 4 XP attack, 3 cost attack on someone, you should have a way to avoid it, or you should have teammates that can help you avoid it. Say a Mystic with the Seal of the Elder Sign or whatever. Can they use that on other people? I think so. Butterfly Swords 5. There was a card of the day on this the other day. I think this is really cool for if you have an Elder Sign ability that is really good to trigger. I think Nathaniel could probably make cool use of this by getting like 6 or 7 attacks in a single turn and returning events back to his hand with Elder Signs. And I think that generally speaking, swinging for 2 damage and being able to distribute it around and getting +2 to it is fine. If nothing else, this is a 2 damage repeatable attack, which is good enough, right? That solves most enemies for a melee weapon, so it's fine. Moving on to Seeker. Forced Learning is interesting. I want to play it a bit more. I played it quickly in a standalone Ashcan Pete deck, just to get more cards in hand, and not get more cards in hand, sorry, to get more cards into the discard pile, kind of, with like improvised stuff. And it was cool. It was an interesting way to use it, but I want to try it out in a Seeker. I feel like this is one that I have to test out, and I feel like I'll be disappointed by the increased 15 deck size. I basically don't ever buy Versatile anymore, unless a deck is drawing through faster than I anticipated, like I did with Norman. I bought one to get a quick thinking. But Versatile makes me frustrated with my opening hands being pretty junk. far more often, and I feel like this will do the same thing. 15 cards, yeah. For versatile, 5 extra cards, there's enough redundancy in the card pool to like kind of get around it. But 15 extra cards, not sure. Jeremiah Kirby is very good, I think. A two health ally for Seekers is just quite good. His ability is really interesting. I think that it's pretty easy to put together a deck that's all evens, and also to upgrade a deck that's all evens, except for its skill cards. That's not an undue hardship, and so Jeremiah Kirby is just quite strong. The Archive of Conduits, I don't have a strong opinion on. It's another one that I'm just going to have to play around with a bit. I do think the healing one is kind of the standout to me. And as is the upgrade that I think evades, but we'll get into that in a minute. As for solving it, it looks challenging. And I don't envy myself when I need to solve it as Monterey Jack, because I'll definitely be testing it out in him. Written in the Stars, this is a really cool card that I just could not make use of for Norman. I don't know if I kind of gave up on it or if I just wasn't playing around it, but I think I used this like once and then dropped it. I didn't enjoy it at all. It was really difficult to get the card I wanted on top of my deck. But I also spent my XP on an Astronomical Atlas very quickly, and I was using Research Librarians to get that instead of his Livre Divant. And if I had been fetching the Livre first, this might have been a lot better. And so I do want to try it again, specifically in Norman, but I anticipate that I might remain disappointed with it. Hiking Boots is nuts. That's Ursula. That's Jack. That's a lot of people. I'd take this in Harvey. To be honest with you, that's like a solo Harvey. I would take this. I would take one of that, no problem. Super good. Super, super, super incredibly good. Join the Caravan is actually my least favorite of the synergies. It kind of is doing something that I don't feel you need. But I might change my mind with the box that I'm getting tomorrow. So, yeah, I think I will. I anticipate that I will change my mind when I get that, because from what I've seen, I understand the maps to be possibly large. And so, moving to any revealed location seems like a good ability, but unless you're paying pretty low for it, which I think I have to play around a bit with some of the higher multi-class stuff to get a feel for how much you're actually reducing when you play these. So, tentatively good, but I actually might expect it not be very good. Survey the Area, I think, is incredible. That's probably the best one of all of these skill cards. Defensive Stance is obviously a bit junkier, but I think this is very strong for basically any solo Seeker. This is 2 more ways to just get out of dealing with an enemy. And there's not a lot of them, especially at low experience. Medical Text level 2, I don't really want to talk about. I don't anticipate taking this, but again, maybe the campaign necessitates it, but it just doesn't seem worth it to me. Unearth the Agents level 2 is like really good. I do think that maybe people are losing their minds a little bit over it. Like, yes, getting a clue through the combined difficulty is good. If you're playing like two cost cards, this is probably really quite strong. But like, good secret cards can cost quite a lot. You're not going to be playing Jeremiah Kirby and a Necronomicon and crushing a 7 Shroud location, right? Or like 2 relics. Like relics, I don't know. Relics tend to be a little expensive, I think. At least the ones I can think of off the top of my head. Like the Tome of Nicotis or whatever, and the Disc of Itzomna. They're all like 3-5 cost. So I think this is good. I think that it will be a little trickier to use than people anticipate. And if you're looking at this as an economy card, you need to put quite a lot into this to make sure it is an economy card. So I think that's an interesting one, but a tricky one. Scientific Theory, I haven't played Joe very much, Joe Diamond. I really have not played him very much. And I don't really know who else I'd use this in. I might use it in like Rex if I gave him a weapon from out of class. But this is fine. Like all of these are good, obviously. They give you a static boost, and you can pay into stuff. But I think this being 1-3 in Seeker makes it not that exciting. Because like damage just goes right on your Seeker fairly often. I find. So So the archives. The first one is the one that moves. Oh God, what is this? Move a ley line to a non-elite enemy. Choose an investigator and an enemy with a ley line at a revealed location. They move to that location. You can remove the ley line to deal a damage. So that one's kind of neat. Sending your killer around to places. Probably a lot better in 3 and 4 player than I'd make use of it 2 player. Because I'd basically always be taking an attack of opportunity if I want to do this, barring aloof units. So, move the ley line to the revealed location. Choose an investigator in the revealed location with a ley line. They move to that location. You may remove the ley line to make them have them take an investigate action. Again, this is probably kind of neat if I need to split up in 2 player, but I anticipate if I have a seeker putting money into this that I probably have someone babysitting them, and I don't know how often this is moving to a revealed location that I really need to go and do an investigate at or move far. But it might be a good way to just teleport around the map. I think this is a more interesting way to teleport around the map because it just lets you skip over stuff the same way that like your Esoteric Atlas does. But, it doesn't actually take charges unless you want to do an investigate. So that's kind of interesting. The evade one to me is kind of like the least interesting one, I think. It's nice that this doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity, though, so it might be useful in solo. I don't know. I need to play around with that to see if it's any good in solo. The Paradise one is obviously the one that kind of stands out because it's a healing one. It draws cards as well as healing, and then you can remove them to do like a big one. And in 2 player, like that's a lot of healing that you can do by just dumping all the ley lines onto someone and then dumping all of them off. So I'm most excited to play this one out, and that's probably the one I'm going to use. The Prophesy Profana is really good. If you watched that awful Nathaniel and Ursula video I did where I was first trying out my new editing style, I fucked up the rules on this so bad. But it's really good, I think. It's like serious tech for standalone play. It's crazy how much tech it is for standalone play, actually. Underworld support's good. If you've got a full collection, it's very, very strong. There's just so much diversity in the card pool now and redundancy that you don't need to worry about that. Scout Ahead is good. Great icons, great move action. Enemies don't engage, super. 21 or bust, yeah. I mean, if you want to play this card, you play this card. But otherwise, you know what you're getting into. Counter Espionage, I think this is incredible, and it's really nice to finally get this favor. It is pricey, though. Not many people are going to be paying out of the nose for this to cancel a treachery on someone else and have them draw a card. But for 4, to cancel a treachery and to draw a card from your deck, great. Even for 2, to cancel it and draw a different one is fine. But this is just really good. It's good. Cheat the System, I think, is one of the synergy cards that is really interesting to me because it's just a super efficient resource card. Fast resource cards are good. Like, undeniably, fast resource cards are awesome. And I'd really like to try this out. I think this is the one I'm probably going to be trying out first, I anticipate. It's just quite good. Untimely Transaction, I mean, this is a Bob thing, and it's good at what it does, I think. Handing the money over to Bob is really neat. Savant, I think, is a good option. Probably the best general one, maybe? I don't know about that for sure, but the fact that this is almost always 3 icons on quite a few of the investigators, and I mean, if it's an unexpected courage, it's not great. But if you're getting Finn to get like 1 plus 3 to a willpower test, that can be really useful, right? So I think Savant's pretty good. But it is a shame if you need the boost for something that isn't willpower in those investigators. The level 2 red clock is interesting, but exceptional cards are something that I've always struggled with because I find I tend to prefer to upgrade more cards out of a deck than to have fewer stronger cards. And I think this is like a bad habit I learned in Dunwich, and I haven't unlearned since I've kind of got used to playing with a lot more card draw in my decks. But I think this is good. I just don't know that I would spend 4 XP on it. Money Talks, I'm going to be honest, I've never actually played Preston, and I don't play big money very often. I get nervous around that in 1 and 2 player because I feel like I just don't have time to sit around getting a bunch of money to make stuff like this active. But this is definitely a good upgrade. Just on the face of it, when any investigator at any location initiates a skill test, and then they also draw a card, regardless of the is this if successful? It's not even if successful; they just draw a card. So Money Talks is good. Money Talks level 2 is good. Black Market, I think I didn't understand this the first couple times I read it, and I've had it explained in the Discord, the Mythos Buster Discord a couple times, and I've kind of read a lot about it. It's definitely good, but I can see why people are excited about it, the folks that play 3 and 4 player a lot more. For 2 player, I think it's reasonable. For 1 player, it's actually really interesting. For like Sephina. But it is no icons, and I'm always drawn away from cards that don't have icons, because if I don't need to play stuff, sometimes it can be annoying. If I just need to pass a couple tests, I don't know. It's an interesting card, but I'm not super excited about it. Moxie, I think, is really good. Moxie's super interesting for Sephina. 3 health on that? Whew. Like, bye-bye leather coat. I won't be taking that anymore. Or leather jacket, excuse me. Or whichever one it is. I don't remember the name of it. But this is really good. But you definitely want to make sure you have the sanity, right? If I was to take this on Sephina, I would want to make sure that I have a fair amount of sanity soak across what I've got in play. And that might be actually kind of tricky to do. But, I think Moxie's good. The Black Fan, another card that's rewarding big money and an exceptional card. But I make an exception and say that this is definitely really good, and I will be playing this. And this card alone almost makes me want to go do a big resource thing right away. This is just awesome. Like, health and sanity, an additional action, and +1 to each your skills when you get 20 resources. Like, I have, in my Ursula campaign, my Carcosa game, Ursula was just, like, casually sitting on how much money? $16 or something like that at a scenario. Like, if I'm actually going for money, whew. The Red Clock level 5 is nuts. It's just crazy. It's so much better. And it should be for a 10 XP card. But this is really good. This is incredible. And there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with this. You need to check into, if you don't know what this can be used for, you're missing out, because there's some crazy stuff with moving charges around and just spending the first charge and getting +4 on like parallel skids to your gamble every turn. Like, that's just a ton of money. Big LCC digs, stuff like that. Down the Rabbit Hole, really interesting card. Definitely be playing a Mystic with this eventually. I've got that awful Down the Rabbit Hell deck that I post everywhere whenever this comes up, where every single card is upgradable. So I'll be trying this out. I promise that I will have a game of this at some point. Dragon Pole, kind of tricky to actually make work, I think. I'll probably, when I build Lily, I'll have one of this. And if it happens to be the weapon that I get, I'll play a bunch of spells and it'll be strong. But otherwise, I won't be relying on it, because it's often a very expensive knife. Meditative Trance, I think, is interesting, and I think this is yet another just healing card that points towards maybe this being necessary in Edge of the Earth. Close the Circle, strong. But I've kind of done some deck building around it, and I think I landed on a weird Carolyn deck where I was like, oh yeah, I can take Close the Circle and it'll have a ton of charges and I can use it on... what can I use it on? Only basic actions, so I could use it to investigate, but my willpower is worse than my intellect. Or I can use it to draw cards. So I think Close the Circle is really cool, but I don't know how to use it. So comments. Toss some comments in the video. Or just, do your own thing. Winds of Power, I think, is interesting. I was going to take this on Norman, but I realized that it actually kind of just doesn't work very well on him. It's fine. If it's on the top of your deck, you can take a draw action and play it and not use up his ability. But, I don't know. When I was taking Divination, 2 charges is actually not that valuable. Big thing about charges is that the charges on the spells that Norman gets released with are not as valuable as charges on normal spells. And so the Winds of Power, if you're going for those ones, is kind of just not that good. Foresight, on the other hand, is incredible. If you play Norman, buy Foresight. Period. Just do it. Don't doubt yourself, just do it. Occult Theory is also quite good, I think. Crushing a random intellect test, it can be really handy. There's a lot of intellect tests on treacheries that add a bunch of doom or make you take a ton of horror and stuff like that. I'm trying to think of the ones in Carcosa that do that. oh, what's the other one? False Lead? Is that what it is from the core set? That you take from Midnight Masks fairly often, dropping all your clues. Crushing that test with a huge willpower bonus, really cool. And then also in Norman, this just lets him test his willpower like a crazy amount too. So I think Occult Theory is pretty good. Parallel Fates I think is pretty cool. I think it's a lot more interesting in 1 and 2 player than above. For 2 player, you can go use this to dig out a really critical card out of your ally's deck or your own deck if you need to, and get them to draw it, reorder their deck, increase the quality of your draws. You can reorder the encounter deck for a lot of turns, like 3 turns of reordered counter deck for 2 player, or 6 turns for 1 player for 1 action. Crazy good. And otherwise, it's got good icons. So Willpower and a Wild is good icons. So I think that card's quite good. Astronomical Atlas, I don't want to say a whole lot about this because it's crazy. This is one of the coolest cards. I am super hyped about this. The one thing is, don't load your deck full of things without icons if you're playing Astronomical Atlas and you're not Norman, because you will not be able to get things off of this. Don't play Emergency Cash with it, or upgrade out of your Emergency Cash to better economy cards. Healing Words, it's good. It's fine. It's cheap. It's a lot of healing. It's 8 healing for 1 card. It's spread out over a lot of actions, but it's a lot. Grounded is fine. It's kind of the least interesting of all of the composures, I think. +1 skill value during skill tests is not the same as having +1 to 2 different things statically. But it is 2/2, and it still gives you, it's still 0. It's also double wild, so like it's got some stuff going for it, but it's the one that excites me the least. And you know what? No surprise there, because Grounded was kind of the worst one. True Magic's really interesting. I don't want to get into it because it's fucky, and people have really strong opinions on how the card actually works. And I think I read it a bit more straightforwardly than other people do. But it's cool. It's cool. I want to try it out. I'm going to be trying it out. It's cool. Short Supply's nuts. I don't have a whole lot to say about that. Schaffner's Catalog is also nuts. I don't have a lot to say about that. They're just really really solid cards, and if you play Survivor at all, you'll see that. They're crazy. Short Supply is nuts on like every Survivor. I don't know that I'll be building Survivor decks without it for a while. I have a hard time imagining myself building Survivor decks without it. Obviously Daniela won't, and I think Bob maybe has a strong argument not to. But for like the rest of them, fuck, why not? Bandages was just the card of the day today. I think this is really cool. It's got a lot of interesting applications. It's a little pricey for what it does, but like parallel, Bob giving this to a lot of investigators is quite good. Mark, Parallel Agnes, anyone that's trying to use Blood Eclipse, anyone that's using a Beat Cop, and your Guardian that's using a Beat Cop, like this sustains a Beat Cop on Yorick forever. This sustains a Guard Dog on Yorick forever. In fact, Guard Dog on Yorick with bandages. Like, why would you pay 3 to replay your Guard Dog after he dies when you can pay 2 for bandages and just never actually lose your Guard Dog, and then pay 2 for the bandages every time it runs out? Because when it runs out of supplies, you discard it. It's really good. I think Bandages Guard Dog is actually a really interesting way to get a bunch of free damage. Jury Rig's kind of cool. It's a little slow, but like for 0 cost card and 1 action, it is like 3 Unexpected Courages. And people always complain about Unexpected Courage because it's not actually like doing a lot. Oh man, these are like super illegible. That's crazy. I love that. I love how illegible that is. Cool. All right. But +2 value across 3 tests. Not even across 3 tests. You can dump it all in 1 test if you want to. It doesn't exhaust. It doesn't have a limit. Is good. I've tried this out on a Track Shoes on like who was I? Ashcan Pete, and it just let me pass a bunch of Track Shoes things that I otherwise would have had a pretty marginal chance of success, and it let me get to a reasonable chance of success. So I think Jury Rig's good. I think Bangle of Jinxes is really strong on Daniela. I don't know who else it's that good on. I remember in the card of the day about this, we were talking about it with Calvin, and it was like, well, wait a minute. Calvin already gets stats for getting hit, so you're kind of like doubling down on your stats being really huge. But what Calvin needs is compression, so I don't think this is a good Calvin card. But I do think it's an interesting Tommy card. I would try this out on Tommy. I know that Cherished Keepsake takes that slot often, but like, if I were to do like a Bandolier survival knife thing, I would definitely take Bangle of Jinxes and just pass a ton of Treacheries, is what I would do. Burn After Reading is not a card I'm super interested in. I was interested in it a while ago when it was like first previewed, but it's fine. Like it's fine. It's 2 clues for one cost. Exiling level 0 cards you can do, but removing Doom from the current agenda, I don't know. At least it self-exiles now, and it is 1 cost, so you can just like deja vu it if you need to. I do think that I could try this out, though. I might try this out eventually, but I can see this feeling really, really scummy. And not wanting to play it very often. Strength of Numbers is probably the synergy card I'm the least interested in. I feel like I've said that every time. Aside from the Seeker one, probably. The Seeker one's probably the one I'm least interested in. But this one, I don't know. It's just a really big icons, and it's kind of like, can I just use Last Chance and have no cards? Can I just use Rise to the Occasion and be someone that actually needs a massive boost? I don't know. It's probably good, but I just not that interested in it. Dauntless Spirit, I think, is pretty good. Not a lot to say about that. I think it's good. Decent amount of icons for a lot of people that probably need it. Blood Will Have Blood is like a bit of a confusing card to me because like it's good, I think. Like it can be a lot of card draw, and it can be pretty good. But I mean, do you want to have to take that much? You can't distribute it around just for some card draw and at 1 cost. I feel like if this costs 0, I'd be a lot more positive on it. For 2 XP, I mean it's good. I just worry that it's not as good as like my knee-jerk reaction makes me think. Because I look at this and I go, oh yeah, that's a lot of draw. Sick. Nice. Fast? Oh yeah. Sign me up. But max 1 per attack. Like you can't just dump both of them out in a big attack and be like, sick, there's my new hand, 8 cards. But I do think it's good. I worry that I'm kind of thinking it's a lot better than it actually is. Fire Extinguisher level 3 is good. The evade is strong. The fight is strong. The exile effect is very strong. So that's a good upgrade. It's nice to be able to actually use Fire Extinguisher. I've played it before, and I like went out of my way to exile it by evading a single enemy that I could have evaded anyways. So Plucky's really good. +1 to Intellect. +1 to Intellect's always good. So I don't have a whole lot to say about this except that +1 Intellect is just awesome. Fend Off is great. A lot of people seem a little miffed that it doesn't synergize the best with Daniela, but I don't know. I think it's awesome. I'm super looking forward to trying this out. It's just permanently getting rid of an enemy, basically, for 1 attack. Sign me up. Alright, multi-class cards. Medical Student, pretty good. Not much to say. Doesn't do a lot, but good. On the Trail, I tried the level 3 version out in a deck, and I never drew it. Level 1 version. I think level 1 version could be a cool Zoe card to go find an enemy. Or just to pick up a clue incidentally if there's no enemies for whatever reason. But, you know, I guess there needs to be an enemy to be able to pick up that clue. So, on the Trail, Level 1, Level 3, bit more interesting. Really good tech card for a couple of standalones. But for 3 XP, I don't know. It does pick up quite a few clues, but in 1 player, certainly not. In 2 player, yeah. If my Guardian or my Secret that I'm playing is kind of a bit more flexible, I could see using that. Michael Lee's really good, but again, it's like a big, really huge, flashy card that can die. But he's good. He's just really good. Look at that. The boosts, the bonus damage thing. He's good. He's good. I cannot deny that he's good. I don't know when I'll be playing him. Probably got to revisit Roland to play him again, I expect. Yeah, I think that's what I'd be doing, is revisiting Roland. Snipe I kind of think is a bit junky. I don't really get it. Seems slow. Old Shotgun's fun, but I don't see myself playing this very often. It seems fun, and I'll try it out, but it also seems a little junky. Quick Draw Holster. It's got like some timing issues with like wanting one-handed guns to get more shots out of them. Two-handed guns are fun. One-handed guns are fun too, but two-handed guns are really fun. Brandon Cthulhu's pretty good. Same thing I said about earlier about the charges. You know, if you're recharging these, they don't do a whole lot for your charges. Nikosi's really neat. I don't have a lot to say about him because I think he's a card that I'll need to try out to get an idea of how he works. But when I finally get around to giving like a Holy Spear Mary a fair swing, Looking forward to trying him out. Fishing out extra blesses and stuff like that. That's really cool. Upgraded Brand of Cthulhu is even better. Not needing to use a hand slot for a weapon that can deal 3 damage a couple times. Really good. Cyclopean Hammer, I mean, enough has been said about this card. It's very strong, it's very expensive. Sledgehammer level 0, I think, is interesting and good. But I think most people are preferring it for the double action fight, obviously. 3 damage and 1 attack's good. It is a double action, but, like, you know, I kind of said this the other day, and maybe it's a bit of a weird take, but, like, imagine you're drawing a backstab and then playing it repeatedly, right? That's your 2 actions. And I know that you get draws passively through upkeep, and I know you start off with 5 cards in your hand. But there's something to be said for it, I think. And someone else pointed out, it's the same action efficiency as, like, Ornate Bow, right? 2 actions, shoot, reload, shoot, reload. You just can't do 2 shoots in 1 turn. So that's the one thing about this, is that it's a little tricky in that regard. Protective Gear is really good. Go look up the list of hazards on Arkham DV. A lot of them. Very strong. Upgraded Sledgehammer, also really cool. Want to try this out with Lily, with her agility thing. Getting that triple attack in seems really cool. Pocket Telescope, I'm sure, is fine, but it doesn't interest me at all. I don't play blind a lot. Like, I do the one blind play, and I kind of... I'm a bit of... I kind of ruin things for myself by spoiling things. I can't help myself. And I don't find spoilers actually spoil things for me. So I don't... Blind plays are probably my least favorite play of Arkham, just because I feel like I'm just running blind and I don't really get what's going on. I like to sit down and have a clear idea of what I need to be doing and go do it and execute it. And solve problems with an aim in mind. I don't really like floundering around in the dark. I don't find that to be a lot of fun and engaging. So Pocket Telescope, to me, I need to be randomized locations, and I need to have abilities that really matter for me to have as if I'm at another location to want to play this. Aeon Chart level 1, it's fine. Janae is nuts. Agility and intellect icon. Static boost, and then moving clues around. Fuck, moving clues around can, like, solve some whole scenarios in solo, right? That's free VP just for moving to a location. You move it away or you move it with you, whatever. Nuts. Aeon Chart level 4, all I will say is don't take the evade action first unless you know you're going to evade them. Because then you got to move or investigate, and you're going to miss that health you had a minute ago. Divination's good. I like Divination. A lot of people were dunking on it pretty hard, but I think it's good. Protect the Anirnik is fine. Draw 3 is good. Returning a card to your hand is good. I don't know for 2 XP that I love it, but it's good. And Divination level 4 is also, similarly to Divination 1, pretty strong. Picking up 3 clues in 1 action is good. You only get to do it twice, but you don't have to. And in 2-player game, sometimes you need to pick up 3 clues because your other investigator just picked one up by happenstance, or they have an ability that lets them pick them up, or whatever. It's fine. Professor William Webb. I think the level 0 version for him is actually just like, meh. Not great, I don't think. Like, it's okay. But he's not good. There's a lot of secret allies that you take before this, I think. There's a lot of survivor allies you take before this. But if you need those cards returned, or you need to connect clues, discover clues in a connecting location because of shroud values, take them. Ice Pick level 1's fine. Doesn't really hold a candle to a level 3 version, but it's good. The upgraded Professor William is quite good, I think. Because obviously he does both, and he has a bit more soak to him, and he's got better icons, so he's good. Level 3 Ice Pick is really interesting, and there's a lot of cool engines you can probably do with that. Looking forward to trying that out. Ethereal Slip. Swapping locations with an enemy is just a cool effect. I don't know if it's a good effect, but it's a cool effect, so I'll be playing that at some point. Blur and its upgraded version are both very strong, I think. Mystics don't get a lot of bonus actions, and the ability to do an evade and get whatever action you want afterwards is very good. I think there's a strong argument for trying out Blur over Mists in some decks. If you don't need to move out of the location, then Mists can feel a little wasted. And you can probably, in some decks, also take the damage rather than be discarding cards. The upgraded Ethereal Slip, I mean, obviously the cost reduction is a big one, and the range is probably relevant in Edge of the Earth. But the icons are like, whatever. It is nice to have double agility icons and rogues, I find. That's where they get a lot of their boost from, so that's fine. And the upgraded blur is just really good. Like getting 2 actions back, taking 2 actions this turn after evading a guy, that's good. Hit me, I don't see myself playing. I don't know. I don't really get... I get what you can do with this, but I don't think that it's quite doing it the way that I would want it to, with a risk level that I accept at level at 1 and 2 player. Unscrupulous Loan seems really good. Not a lot of downside and a lot of upside, aside from just not getting it early and having no icons. So you probably don't want to have more than 1 in your deck. Both Precious Memento are super interesting, and I have a lot of things that I want to try out with them. Probably mostly Daniela at this point. But they're super cool. A lot of soak for a reasonable cost. But if you can really squeeze out those fails and over successes, you're golden. The Talisman of Protection is somehow finding it into a lot of my deck building right now at level 0. It gets dropped, but I'm interested to try this one out. I want to see how that works. Earthly Serenity is fine. It's a decent amount of healing. Any Mystic is going to crush this test and probably just dump a ton of healing and horror out in 1 action. And so for 2 actions in a test, having to pass the test is a bit of a pain. But it is what it is. I think it's a good card. Love the art for Blair, but this in the fin, the upgraded 25 is so fun. It's funny you say that because I want to say like a month ago, I tried out Blob for the first time blind, and I brought a Fin deck with Blur and a 25 auto. And when the Blob spawned and he can't be evaded, I almost immediately rage quit the scenario. I saw what I could do, and then just failed instantly and died. It was pitiful, but it was very funny. Looking back on it. The new Soak Pen in his Bob and gave it to Parallel Agnes. Ooh! Shit! Oh, I like that. Oh, I gotta try that out. That sounds awesome. I never would have thought of that. The Enchanted Bow is cool. I like that it gets you an unlimited 2 damage. A bit of a shame it exhausts, but I understand why it exhausts. If you just got to do 2 damage with every attack with this thing, it'd be nuts. With every action, I mean. But it is a lot of slots. It's a high cost and a lot of slots. And ultimately, it is only 2 damage. But I think it's interesting. It has its place. Earthly Serenity 4, I think, is quite good, actually. I think that Earthly Serenity 4 is going to be my go-to healing option for a late-game purchase for Mystic and Survivor from now on. The spell slot may be a bit contested in Mystic, but it's I think this is a strong contender for one of the better healing cards in the game. The flexibility is nuts, and losing 2 resources for not being able to fail. I mean, I guess if you succeed by 0, you don't get to heal at all. But I don't know. I don't have any difficulty dumping a lot into a willpower test if I've got this in my deck. If I know that this is in there, I'm going to be ready for it, and I'm going to smash that test. I think maybe on hard and expert, that kind of falls off a bit, but I play standard. So I'm not too worried about that. Bow is definitely some loving for Rita. That's true. The bow definitely is nice for Rita. I don't... Rita is an investigator that's always kind of intimidated me quite a bit. Her weakness is rough. Her ability to gather clues is pretty rough. But the huge agility is just awesome. So I need to give her another go. I haven't given her enough of a fair shake, I don't think. Prophetic is probably the most obvious use cases of just being Spell, Spirit, and Fortune is a lot of cards across all 3 of these factions. There's a lot of obvious uses for all of these. Spells specifically and Spirit cards specifically, you can boost and pay for a lot of those. Fortune cards, yeah, you can pay for some of them. I think there's a couple Fortunes that have... I'm trying to think of what? Fortuitous Discovery, maybe? Maybe? It is called fortuitous, so it better be a fortune. Anyways, prophetic seems good. For the synergy cards in particular, the 3 icons is awesome. The one big thing about these is that, like, unlike your level 4 core set, I say core set, talent boosters, which obviously don't come in the core set, but I value those quite highly, and I think that there's something to be said about the fact that you can't spend more money with this. You can only spend the resources off of prophetic, which is good because this is an economy card. This lets you play cards. But if you need more help passing your skill tests, this only gives you the 2. So I think there's a lot of cases where if you're not using synergy, you might be better off taking your level 4 talent. Anyways, Sleuth is interesting, but like there's no charms and tomes that start tests except for like the Abyssal Tome and the medical texts, I think. I think those are the only 2, and I don't think any charms start a test. So these are just economy for those. But for tactics, there's quite a lot of tactics. Level 0 lucky when you're going Dark Horse. Yeah, actually. You know what? I don't even hate that. I don't even hate that. I could see taking this in a Dark Horse deck. Because being able to boost up money to pay for your assets, like you need assets. You know, Dark Horse puts you at 0 money, but you need assets. You need assets to succeed at the game. So I could see doing that. I could absolutely see doing that. But tactics for Sleuth. I think that's actually probably good. There are no tactics for Mystics. Mystics have no tactics, but for Seekers and Guardians, there's a few. And for Seekers, you could do an even split on like tomes and tactics. Play a couple tomes and get a couple tactics. I think this can make sense. Bruiser's probably the second easiest to just like comprehend what it goes in. If you're fighting people, you just take this. You just take this, and it pays for them or it lets you crush tests. That being said, usually when I've got a fighter, I've got static boost and I've got bonuses on the weapon that I don't necessarily need this. And if you get it in a different order than when you get your weapon, then it's just giving you the skill boost. Like if you get this after you get your like 2-handed melee weapon into play, it's not doing a ton. Triple color asses are so interesting. Took Crafty and Winnie for replaying Pilfer and Lockpick test in 3-player and was alright. I can imagine that being pretty good, actually. I like having the traits be a bigger deal. I agree as well, Tim. I think that the traits, not that they're underutilized, because you don't want to go like full nutsy tribal stuff, but I think that how much they're leaning into traits with this set of cards in particular is really interesting. Especially like trying to math out, like, can I really, if I'm using Bruiser to make my firearm or my melee weapon cost less to play, can I make use of this armor too? Like, what can I do cool with armor? You can do, what is it? The enchanted armor. You can use Bruiser to boost that test on enchanted armor, which is like totally silly, but you can do it. You can try it out. It doesn't hurt to try it out. Crafty is Insight, Tool, and Trick. I think this one's really good. Trick in particular, for Rogue, is nuts. Crafty and Chuck. If you have like 2 Crafty and 2 Chuck in your deck, you're probably passing every test and never paying for anything, and you're just all set. So I could see that being pretty good. Insight, obviously, in Seeker, is like every event except for like 2 or 3 spells. Like, it's crazy. So this one's quite good. Antiquary is also a tricky one to understand how to use, I think. Favor, Relic, Ritual. But I think you could make the use of this if you wanted to. Prophetic's really interesting for Carolyn. She seems to be the investigator who's the easiest access to synergy stuff. Yeah, and that's kind of where I landed with that one that I mentioned with Close the Circle. Is like I got Close the Circle and I was like, oh wow, this comes into play with like 4 charges, shit. And then I was like, wait a minute, what can I actually use this on where my willpower is better than my other stat? But I think it is cool, and you're right, she does have a lot of spirits and spells. Prophetic in Patrice with a ton of spells and things. Oh, that's interesting. I'll have to take a look at that. I bet that would be good, because she gets all those mystic spells too, and fortune cards. Yeah, I see that. And spirits, actually. Really? She's got quite a lot she can use for that. In the thick of it, this card scares me a little bit. 2 traumas. 2 traumas not crazy. 3 XP is really good at the start. An extra 3 XP for your deck like like 2 level 1 cards, or level 1 card and a level 2 card, or a single level 3 card, especially if it's something like Charisma that has such a huge impact on how your deck is built and plays. It's really strong. But the thing that gets me about this is the risk of the trauma spiral, and the fact that the 2 trauma at the start of the game is not, I think, that big of a deal, and the 3 XP is a really big deal. But at the end of the campaign, starting with 2 trauma and having 3 more XP is not a lot of XP, right? When you got 45 XP from the campaign, and this pushed you up to having 48 on the final scenario, I can imagine looking at that 2 trauma and being like, why the fuck did I think I should do that? That being said, I think that there are some really good use cases for this, and I'm going to be trying it out. I'm just worried that I'm going to be killing myself a lot. And I don't like to kill myself, so. Heavy Furs is really interesting. It's pricey. But I'd like to try this out with Lonnie. I think Lonnie and Heavy Furs is a really interesting thing. Every deck I make until the end of time. And I can understand that perspective. I absolutely understand that perspective, because I want to try it out, because XP is awesome. Why would you... Why do you play through campaign if not to accumulate a ton of XP and flex on scenarios, right? I just worry about the very end game where you've got 2 more trauma. I guess I'll go reference one of my campaigns was the TFA campaign Play Along with Akachi, where I took 2 arcane research and then got defeated a couple times and then didn't take blankets. By the end of the campaign, I was just I had spent 4 consecutive scenarios where Akachi's only job was to not die, and then be able to pass a couple tests at the end of the scenario to try and close it out. That's all she did, was not die, and then Stella did everything else because Stella was fine. But she had so much mental trauma that I was like, oh, I can't actually do anything. If I play Ward of Protection, I can die to whatever that card is that you lose 3 actions or take 3 horror when you auto-fail it. Anyways, but that's just a me thing. And I understand why people like it so much. 3 XP at the start it lets you do some really cool stuff. Yeah, down the rabbit hole with... Yes, I agree. I think that there's a lot of stuff that we could use FAQs for in this pack, just to kind of be certain of interactions. But I'm fairly certain that Thick of It would make you be able to jump over that tax from down the rabbit hole. That would be another one that I would find almost a little upsetting. Not really upsetting, but I'd be kind of come on, really? Sure you don't want to issue an errata rather than just let the card stand as is? Used my experimental first try with Hungering Blade deck in Yorick to start with Reliable and Hungering Blade. Maybe not good, but fun. Hey, you know what? Anything to make Hungering Blade work, really cool. I think Reliable Hungering Blade sounds like a really cool deck. I always, where I play mostly 2-in-1 player, I get real nervous with serious build around single cards like that. I was talking about that with Exceptional earlier. But fuck, that sounds cool. I would try that out. Heavy Furs, I think, is really cool for a Blessed Yorick trying to fish for blessed tokens. Maybe Mary fishing for blessed tokens, because she does need health. And basically anyone that can replay it, or rogues that can redraw, that can heal it with Lonnie. I think a combat rogue would probably like this just fine. But getting to draw an extra token, or cancel the token, return it, and reveal a new token, I know it's non-auto-fail, but that can push you up over some tests. And if you're trying to succeed by, if you pull a -4 and you're not passing, then you're just oh, sick, all right, I get to try it again, and I might get a -2, or a -1, or a 0, or a +1, or my Elder Sign, or if you auto-fail, I might still fail, but I think that Heavy Furs with Lonnie on a rogue is an interesting one, and I'd be excited to try that out. Sled Dogs, if you saw my Venetian dog sledding champion scenario that I played, these things are awesome, man. These are great. I kind of don't want to play them again just because of how fucking awesome they were with Leo, and I Struggle to imagine how anyone else is going to make them be as awesome as he did. But obviously, York and Tommy can make great use of them. Fuck. Attacking for 4 damage with a +4 attack is just good. Even though you only get 1 try. Pack Live and Learn. Pack Oops 2 for Survivor. Really cool card. This is exciting. I like stuff like this. Plus having 4 copies of it, like, man, that's good. I will say, though, that they suck until you get, like, 3. Paying 6 for 4/4 soak and a 2 damage attack? Eh. Paying 9 for a 3 damage attack? Yeah. Paying 12 for a 4 damage attack and, like, just never dying? That's pretty cool. Because it's tough to die with the sled dog team out. Yeah, the real reason we all love you. Exactly. And Rod of Animalism is a great way to kind of activate them. I do think, though, that it's really interesting that you could do a Survivor thing with these, with the Ravens and the Stray Cats. But I think that if you're running like 2 Guard Dog and all the Sled Dogs, Rod of Animalism is just a good card to have in your deck. I can see only running 1, because the second copy has not an amazing icon. For 1 XP, it's fine. You might want to see a copy early, and I can see running 2. But I can also imagine just running 1 and maybe picking up a backpack and having some other items that are high value. Cat Swarm. Yeah, Cat Swarm. Oh yeah, Miss Doyle, right? Are they all creatures? I think they are. Or at least she is. Leo can play them for 2 each. Papa Leo Sled Dog adventures ago. Well, I mean, when I played him in the Venetian Dog Sledding Champion, he had that Rod of Animalism, which reduces the cost by 1, and then he also reduced the cost by 1. I was using Calling in Favor to return them to my hand and fetch them from the deck, and then I was using Lucid Dreaming to go fetch them as well. So like, it's just there's a lot you can do with that. That's really cool. Call for Backup is a cool way to make your synergy stuff do a little bit. It's not amazing. For 2 XP, I almost feel like it's a little underwhelming, but I think it's just fun to be able to say, watch me do one of each of these things. And for that alone, it's cool. And I will probably try it out if I go for a synergy deck. If I'm putting my synergy card of my class in a deck, there's no reason I'm not picking up Call for Backup. A couple notable things is like, you pick up a clue. Anything that triggers off picking up a clue, you deal a damage. Anything that triggers off of dealing a damage or killing an enemy. Moving, Ursula, right? Healing, Carolyn, right? There's a lot of cool things that you can like combo with this off of a couple of investigators. So that's kind of neat as well. When it comes to the weaknesses, I don't have a lot to say about these because I've only dealt with one of them, which is the, I believe, arm injury, where you can only take 1 activate per turn. And this one is painful. I'm sure there's some investigators that don't mind it, but this one sucks. If this is in your weakness pool, you should bring a healing card in basically every deck, because a lot of decks like to use activates more than once per turn. I will say that. Double synergy. I like that. I could see double synergy, especially with that big economy card. What is it called again? Trick the System or Cheat the System? Being able to double that for a lot of money, and then being able to double that for 2 moves and 2 clues and 2 damage and a couple healing and horror. Really good. Leg injury, move, resign, or evade. I can see this one being painful. Only being able to move once a turn can really fuck you over. I've had Treacheries do that in a couple of the custom campaigns where you only get to move once a turn. And also, I guess, Dream Eaters, I think, where you only get the 1 move a turn. And that can be really painful. Panic. What is this one? Play, engage, or resource action. I think this one's probably the one that I'm the least scared of. And it's a horror one as well. So I'm not too worried about this one. Play actions I could see being annoying. But like, how often are you playing more than one thing a turn consistently? Or how often can you not delay a play by a turn, right? I don't know. And then Stupor, Parlay, Draw, or Investigate. That one's tough. restricting both draw and investigate actions, ooh, like that is rough. Sometimes you just need to sit there and draw some cards to have some good options going forward. Sometimes you just need to clear 3 clues off a location, plus however much you get from compression. And I can see that one being really painful for quite a few people. I can see it also being not that painful for some people, but parlay could be really rough in some scenarios. So Stuper's the one. Stuper and arm injury are the two that I think I'm the most scared of, and leg injury as well from the move one. So that pretty much sums that up. I think there's a lot of really good, interesting cards in this set. I'm just gonna wax lyrical, I guess, on how impressed I am with Jeremy and MJ and the whole team at just delivering a really cool set of cards. There have been duds in the history of this game. There's going to be duds in every card game. There might be a couple of duds in here, but I think that they did a really good job in making sure that you can go like, oh yeah, I can see how I could use that. Basically every card. I feel like, what is it called? Hit Me? I feel like Hit Me is like the only card in the whole set that I was just kind of like, what? Wait, what the fuck? What is this? Like, what? I get what you do with it. It's like a weird lucky / daring maneuver thing. That's fine, right? But it's a little expensive to do that and pretty risky. So I'm not super interested in using it. But basically everything else, I'm looking at it and going like, yeah, I get it. I get that. That makes sense. So, huge props to them. Really good job. I'm going to be back hopefully tomorrow night. I know the webcam quality isn't great, but if people are willing to watch it, I'm willing to play it, and I'm going to play it anyways, so I may as well stream it. I'm going to be playing Edge of the Earth. I'm going to be playing the first scenario. As I understand, the scenarios are a little wonky and they're a little big, and so it might be really cramped on this display. My table's already pretty small. I might have to figure something else out a little bit. It might be a little weird, but I am planning on playing it for anyone that's interested in watching. It'll probably start at, I guess, what would it be? It would be 9 p.m. Eastern. That's 10 p.m. my time, is what I would expect it to start at. But it could be a lot sooner. I had no idea it was up on redacted text. It is not up on redacted text. It is out in Canada tomorrow, and I will have it in hand. That's why I'm playing with the webcam today. So I will be playing with live cards, which I don't normally do on camera, and it won't be an edited thing. So, but I think it is out on redacted text if you go and find some of the unofficial updates that some of the player contributions post. From what I've seen of the campaign, I'm really excited about it. I read through, I think, what was it, like maybe the prologue or something, and I was like, all right, I'm hyped. I'm going to stop. Like I said, I often spoil stuff for myself, and I did spoil a bit of this for myself, but I'm kind of like, I'm not going to spoil the actual playing of the scenario. I don't mind looking at some of like the campaign beats and stuff like that, the setup, stuff like that, but all the location text and stuff like that, I'm gonna leave it to be fresh tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, like I said, 9 p.m. Eastern time, possibly earlier. But yeah, I guess that pretty much wraps it up. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Everyone who watched live, appreciate it. Love what you guys do over at Miskatonic University Radio, Dane. And I will see you guys next time.